can I get a raise of hands from those of you who know how to speak a language besides English? Alright, so that's some of you guys. And I speak another language as well, but that wasn't the case all the time. So today I'm going to try and persuade you guys to to do something new. And that something is to try and learn a new language. The language doesn't matter, choose any language you find interesting, or if you ever consider trying to study abroad, learn that language. So there are endless reasons why I believe everyone should learn a new language besides English. And today I'm going to be sharing with you guys 3 reasons why I believe everyone should do so. So the first one's going to be that it establishes deep connections and cross-cultural connections. It opens a world of job opportunities, and lastly, it allows you to discover a new culture. So I'm going to be sharing how all of this is possible by learning a new language through an experience I had when I was younger. So I know if you guys look at me, you guys are probably like, okay, she's Mexican, and I am, and you guys are probably like, okay, she knows how to speak Spanish. And yes, I do know how to speak Spanish, but that wasn't the case all the time. When I was younger, I grew up not both my parents speak English and understand English very well. So it was I grew up speaking English throughout my house. It was something normal. And my parents tried to speak Spanish to me at times, and I did manage to learn a couple of words and here and there, but I was never able to actually communicate with them. And something that I know my parents a lot was that whenever I would try to speak to my parents, I could never complete a sentence without having to insert English words in a sentence and talking to them. And so that was a problem. And English was just something that was normal to me. I mean, I went to school here mostly all my life, so the homework I did was in English, my friends spoke English, my family spoke English, everyone spoke English, so it was just something normal. But things changed. When I was in 6th grade, my grandma, who lives in Mexico, got really sick, and we had to move to Mexico for a while. So my mom took us with her, and we were supposed to be there for about 2 weeks, but our stay ended up being for a year. And it was really hard actually being there. And my mom didn't want us to lose any school time, so she enrolled us in school in Mexico. And that was really hard, especially because I didn't know how to speak Spanish. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I thought that in Mexico they just spoke English, but school wasn't English. I mean, spoke Spanish, but school wasn't English, until I went my first day and it was 6th grade. And when I tried making friends, I would speak to them in Spanish because I realized, oh, they speak Spanish, but I would put words in English and they would just look at me like I understand what you're saying, but why are you using words in English? And they're like, you're Mexican, you should speak Spanish. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't. Not that well. And then while I was there, it was hard adapting to everything from language to the culture to the place itself. And one of the hardest but most rewarding parts was meeting new people. And that's what leads me to my first point, which is that it establishes deep connections and cross-cultural friendships. So at first it was hard making new friends, especially in elementary school since I was so young and I didn't really know anyone there because it was my first time actually living there. But once after a couple months, I started learning more, and I started not only speaking it, but I learned how to read it and write it as well. And it was a really good experience. And now that I look back at it, it was just learning a new language allowed me to connect with so many other people. I met a lot of friends that I still talk to now on Facebook, of course. And even my teachers, when I go back to Mexico to visit, I still talk to some of my teachers. I go back to my elementary school and my junior high, and I talk to them. So that's something really cool that I know not a lot of people have the opportunity to do. And also with my parents, I can finally have a conversation with them in Spanish without having to put English words in there. And my second point is going to be that it opens, not only did I make connections with people, but I benefited from it when I came back here. So at the end of my senior year, I took a CNA course, and that CNA course required me to complete 120 hours of clinicals. And while I was at the clinicals, I noticed that a lot of the residents that were there, they were Spanish speaking, but a lot of the nursing assistants that were there didn't speak Spanish. They were mainly white and Filipinos, and so I was like, okay. And then a lot of the students that were along with me were Mexican as well. And but I noticed that they had a hard time communicating with the residents, so that was a problem. And then I noticed that I would get called a lot to go to the rooms where there were Spanish speaking that didn't speak English, and they would call me to go like interpret and translate like what they were trying to say. And that was like really cool. I felt kind of special, and I was like, wow, like they're calling me. Like there's all these people that are Mexican as well, but they're not calling them, you know? And it was really cool because the healthcare administrator himself like came up to me one day and he was like, after you're done with your clinicals, I want you to come back. Like I want you to work here. And I was like, wow, like this is such a good opportunity. And it was just because I knew how to speak Spanish better than they did. And after that, so that's an example of how it's opening job opportunities. And in an article by an article called The Economist, studies show that knowledge of a foreign language brings economic benefits. So, but just learning a second language and like something that you can put in your resume and that makes you look better. And sometimes they offer a better paying salary just because you know a second language. And the last point I will cover is how by learning a new language, I was also able to learn about my culture. So, while I was in Mexico for a year, I experienced like a lot of new things, and I learned a lot about like the Mexican culture, which I didn't know anything about like before, because my parents, like I said, they spoke English. They were like totally fine with it. I learned about a lot of different things. Like I learned the history about it. I learned foods I've never even heard of in my life. I got to try like all these really good foods, and then movies and music, and just the lifestyle itself was so different from here. And it was just an awesome experience. And I had the opportunity to go to Mexico and actually learn a new language. And not only did it benefit me like from learning my culture, but it opened like I noticed the impact it had on my life. For example, like I said, the job opportunity. So if any of you guys are ever wondering, like whenever you're in your free time or whatever, I encourage you guys to actually like maybe like commit to, you know, go online and be like, okay, I'm gonna start to learn something. Like my sister, for example, she's going to Japan in next semester, like in next year, and she took Japanese for 4 years. And like she's really excited because she took 4 years, but she still learns like online. There's like websites where you can just learn a new language, and she's really excited to do that. So you can learn a particular geography without like knowing the language, but you can't feel it fully without throwing yourself in, and that begins with learning the language. So I highly encourage all of you guys to, you know, try just to learn, like just attempt. I bet you guys aren't gonna regret it. You're not gonna lose anything from it. So go for it.
All right, Leslie, what did you think?
I thought you did pretty good. Your introduction was like kind of short, but then you made it longer with the personal story. And then a lot of your sources, I guess, were just like your own examples and your own like personal stories, which was kind of cool. But you did have like the one article reference, so that was nice. You connected with the audience by that little like hand raising thing. You were pretty good on your transitions. Sometimes they were kind of abrupt, but like you always said when we were moving on, so I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense. And your conclusion, you told us like why we should learn it. So good job.
All right, I have to jump around a little bit because you gave me the wrong form.
Yeah.
Yes, this is the prepared delivery evaluation form. Fortunately, I had an extra, so I kind of made notes on it. You know. You'll get two forms. You'll see. One has comments on it. One has all your numbers on it. Audience survey is attention device, my favorite. I don't like that very much. But it's not that an audience survey doesn't make sense to have in the speech. I just don't like it as an attention device, and I think that that's a little bit problematic. I thought your goal was very clearly stated. You had an excellent setup of what the content was going to be. Structurally, everything was easy to follow. The transitions were relatively straightforward. I'm going to point out that Leslie is being very kind when she talked about how most of your research was just your personal experience. With the exception of the one quote from The Economist, everything was basically your own experience, which is good to have in the speech. I think that gives you a lot of credibility. It gives you a chance to speak to us a little bit more directly about it. And if I'm listening to you, you sound enthusiastic about the topic, you're interested, you want to talk about this kind of thing, and I think that that's great. But you need to do a little bit more research here. I mean, it's not hard to find data that talks about people who have a second language having greater financial opportunities, being desirable to businesses, that sort of thing. There are all kinds of places that talk about the cultural things that you're talking about, how it's easier to connect with your culture. And when you talk about connecting with people, your personal experiences are great, but do people who learn foreign languages, like we had a number of people in here who raised their hands, I don't know if they ever connected with the cultures of the language that they spoke or not. I have no way of knowing that. All I have is your experience, and it may not be very generalizable, because people might learn the language, for instance, for 4 years or 5 years, they take the language, but they never visited the place, so they never spent any time there, they never connected with people there. Maybe they don't go to an online community and communicate that way. Fortunately, there's a translate button on Facebook, so I can pick up a lot of stuff. But it's it doesn't. I think you need to make a stronger argument. You tell a good story, and so I think you get the emotional material into the speech pretty well. Lots of positive visualization in the speech, and that's the stuff that I like. I just think that the argument needs to be stronger. All right, thank you.